2014 has been the year of change for the National Basketball Association. In February, Adam Silver was named commissioner, replacing David Stern. Stern had been NBA commissioner for 30 years. But there was no time for Silver to enjoy a honeymoon, as the Donald Sterling racist comments incident forced Silver to oust Sterling from the league after he had only been in his new job for 2 months. Now there is more change in the league, and it's great. Washington, D.C. Attorney Michele Roberts has been named the new executive director of the National Basketball Players Association, making her the first woman and the first African-American woman to head up a major sports union in North America. It is my honor to have with me now Michele Roberts, a woman who is consistently rated as one of the top attorneys in the United States. Well, I would have picked you just because of your litigation experience, but congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You did something awful right, because from my understanding, 300 people applied, if I'm not mistaken. 70 candidates were interviewed, and then it was down to the final 3. How do you think your interview went?
Well, I mean, what I did whenever I was interviewed by the players was just to talk straight. I mean, they clearly had come from an experience where they felt that they'd been taken advantage of.
With respect to the union?
With my predecessor. My predecessor's behavior resulted in his ouster from the union, and frankly, the players were let down. And so what they needed to hear, I think, and what they deserved to hear, was that whoever their next executive director was going to be someone who understood that the priority was the union. The union did not belong to the executive director, and that the mission of the union would be the only priority. And so frankly, I told them, I've got a great job. I work at a fabulous law firm. My practice is successful. I'm happy. I'm not here because I need to feel successful. I am successful. I'm here because I think you guys need some help, and I think I can help you.
Wow. Do you remember when you felt like you started connecting with the people you were interviewing with? And how many interviews did you have to go through before?
I think 7 or 8.
Wow. And each time you're meeting with different people, or was it just, okay.
Yes.
When did you start feeling like, you know what, this could be mine? I mean, obviously you were top 3, so that began the conversation with yourself, but when did you see the turn?
You know, at some point, I believed that I deserved the job when I applied. I wouldn't have otherwise put my hat in the ring if I didn't think I could do it, and do it better than anyone, at least that I knew. But at some point, probably in the middle of the process, I began to feel the players relax around me. I mean, at the very beginning, I think many of them, by the time of my 4th or 5th interview, knew that a woman was among the candidates. And there was an initial nervousness that I could tell at the very outset, but by the 4th, 5th interview, you know, they clearly had been talking among themselves about me. And there was a relaxation in their questions and their responses. They weren't shy about talking about the girl thing. And when I realized that they were comfortable with me, I said, you know, I think I've got this. I think I've got it.
And you got it without really having a connection to the NBA, which I understood was an issue for some, which I'm sure a lot of people can understand that, but you don't necessarily, actually, I think it's better that you didn't, because you come to it with clean hands, a clean slate, and I think that's probably the way they looked at it too.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it became an asset as opposed to a liability. You know, frankly, there are a number of different stakeholders in the game, and you know, people have agendas, and there was some concern that the person that was selected would have an agenda that predated getting the job, and perhaps had some allegiances to people outside of the union. I didn't have any of that. I understood the game, I understood the business, but I was beholden to no one, and I told them I'd be beholden to no one except for them, the union.
That right there got you the job. That right there, because they've gone 18 months with no one in that position. I mean, someone was obviously acting as an interim.
Yes.
But you know, and I understand that at some point, you know, some people are like, well, let's keep looking, but at some point, you can't sit on the fence anymore. You got to come down to the right, to the left. You've got to make up your mind, because we've got collective bargaining that we need to get to.
We need to start preparing for that process yesterday. You know, the union believed it to have been harmed at the last CBA negotiations. It did lose a tremendous amount of basketball-related income, and so the concern is that
How did that happen?
I wasn't there,
Yeah.
and it's hard for me to cast blame, but the reality is that we went from enjoying 58% of that income to 50%.
Huh.
And that's, as you can imagine, a lot of money.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that cannot be repeated. Indeed, it will not be repeated. And I've suggested to them that if it comes close to being repeated, don't worry about firing me. I'm going to walk out the door because I will have been a failure. So we are preparing for CBA negotiations today.
And one of the things I know you've said is that you're going to hire a staff.
Yes.
Because here's the thing. I may not have any NBA experience, but I'm going to hire somebody who does. And I'm going to let that person be someone I trust. They can be in my ear. I'm going to surround myself with good people, and I am going to represent you all.
That's exactly right. I referred to the management team that we're going to put together as a team of gladiators. And that's because that's the level of experience and the level of excellence that I plan to bring to the union. And I've represented CEOs for a number of years, and the best CEOs I've ever had occasion to know are those who do exactly that, put together a team of very smart, very dedicated people and listen to them. And so that's where we're headed. That's number 2 on my list of priorities.
So, when you were a little girl and you were thinking about all the things you wanted to do when you grew up, was this one of them?
Not only was it not, it's surprising that to some extent it's a natural progression, though it was not. I mean, I certainly grew up knowing basketball. I have 2 older brothers. We had one television, you can imagine, in New York, we're watching basketball. And so I watched a lot of basketball, and I, as a consequence, have always loved it. The minute I was able to afford season tickets, I bought season tickets, but not for 1 second that I think I'd ever end up in this place. Having said that, it's exactly where I should be, in that we're talking about solving some problems for clients that I love. It's very much the way I started my practice, and it's a nice transition back to talking to people again, as opposed to corporations all day long.
And you're a litigator, is that right?
I am.
Which that means that you handle situations in court. You go to court a lot. You're not a corporate attorney who just looks at documents and settling. So you are used to having to persuade a group of people to think your way. Right. So although it's not negotiating in the sense that you'll be negotiating now, it's still a skill set that's definitely needed.
In fact, I'd prefer to describe myself as not merely a litigator, but a trial lawyer, because I try cases in front of juries. I talk to juries, and you're absolutely right. It's for me been having to take very complicated concepts and communicate and persuade people to my way of thinking, my client's way of thinking. I think the executive director's position does entail a lot of cheerleading, but it also involves being able to talk to the players and understand what conditions of employment they need to have improved, and to communicate that to some stakeholders that are much more educated than my players, and some of my players at least. So it is being a communicator of sorts, and that's what I've been doing for the last 30 years. So to me, it's a natural transition.
Congratulations to Washington, D.C. attorney Michele Roberts. She is now the executive director of the National Basketball Players Association, a first for a woman and a first for an African-American woman. Congrats, my love.
Thank you very much.
So proud.
Appreciate that.
Up next, transforming donuts into a gourmet experience. We'll be right back.